looks so familiar.
It's been a while since we've done one of these. We're 15 hours in, part 8. Our first story tonight is the GigaFund scandal. Boson, what is it?
Oh, I thought Lord Bagingy had something.
Yeah, Lord Bagingy here. I do have something. This was published in March 2005, it seems. The biggest financial scandal in world history, a cover-up update. All right, now this is where the bulk of the text starts. Leo Wanta, a distinguished U-5 Secret Service Treasury officer and FBI operative who is the primary U.S. financial warfare officer, engaged in operations to collapse the Soviet evil empire through financial maneuvers to prevent the Soviet military devoting larger resources to military expenditure, has languished since 1993 in jail and under house arrest. The primary reason for this predicament is that he audited the Illuminati's Giga financing operation in 1989 to 1992 too accurately, far the liking of certain high-level official crooks. Now, this is a very long document.
Okay, Egghead, in English, please.
How about you give us a TLDR in your own words?
Well, from what I can gather, there was this guy named Leo Wanta who was a Secret Service / Treasury officer and FBI who was engaged in a plot by the FBI supposedly to collapse the Soviet evil empire quotation marks through various financial operations or maneuvers to stop the Soviet army from devoting more resources to military reasons. And since 1993 has languished in jail and house arrest. And supposedly he audited the Illuminati's Giga financing operation, which started in 1989 and ended in 1992, too accurately, far the liking of certain high-level official crooks. And that's just like the first paragraph. There's various there's a fucking lot, and I haven't even gotten to most of this, but from what I can gather, it's I don't know. Don't think it's real though. Don't think it's credible.
That's not really a detail too long to.
That was more of give
Just
me more
explaining
massive
it again.
paragraphs.
Yeah.
But I can't blame you. Some of these, dude, are just ridiculously
Now, there is another one that doesn't have to do with that involves a British international bank called the Danksy Bank. And I believe, yes, there's a man called Vestiger who, let's see, apparently he said this is a giga scandal in reference to the Danksy Bank's already battered shares that fell about 4%. Although this is much more recent than 2005, so I'm not sure if that's actually having anything to do with an actual conspiracy.
Yeah.
So it mostly stems to come from that internet article that he found.
I'm kind of skimming through it, and I don't know. It doesn't seem to be very credible. It seems like a lot of rambling, and frankly, I don't think it's real.
Well,
I would give that one a 3 out of 10.
Yeah, seems pretty
Wouldn't
boring and vague, so I'm gonna black that and move on. Lost?
Well, if you thought the last one was boring, let me tell you about the lost Russ Meyer and Ray Harryhausen.
Please do.
Well, for those who don't know, Ray Harryhausen, obviously very famous stop motion special effect. I believe Russ Meyer was a porn producer. Now, this conspiracy theory is not actually a conspiracy theory. It's based on a meme image that isn't even real. It's basically a Photoshop, and I'm gonna post it in voice. I'm gonna have to immediately delete it.
Oh, jeez. You hear that, Larry?
Oh,
Got
hey.
Yeah. So it's not a real thing. It's a joke. But I thought
Taken by the T-Rex.
I thought the cover was really funny, so I wanted to post.
I like her face.
Is that Miley Cyrus?
It looks thing that I don't like about it is that she has almost exactly my hairstyle.
Cute.
All right. Well,
dinosaur
I'm gonna
looks like-
delete it now so
yeah.
I don't get banned.
Yeah.
I
But
can
that's pretty
draw it, like send it to me, and I'll just
It's
draw.
too late.
draw over
Dino
her.
already screen capped it.
No!
Now sending it to Blair.
Muted for 3 days. No, muted for 3.
Hey, Boson. Just so that we have a reference later on, can you send it to me so I can draw a bra over it?
Oh, jeez.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So that's that one. What's next? I'm
So
sorry.
that
Oh,
one.
by the way, Sinaticus. You blacked it, right?
Which one? The Lost Russ?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
haven't.
the one we just talked about.
Yeah, I haven't blacked it yet, but I'm gonna.
Well, yeah, please do, because it's not.
Okay. So.
So thought reform totalism.
I got
I
this
looked
one.
this up. Okay, you got it. Go ahead.
A reference voice for a nice cover. It is a book produced by a journalist in the 50s. It essentially details. 1 second, please. 1 sec.
Habe? Sorry, I mean, okay.
Okay, it essentially details the story of this journalist who interviewed American POWs and Korean and Chinese students. The book details a variety of ways the Chinese government, essentially, for lack of a better word, brainwashed individuals through 8 techniques, such as mystical manipulation and sacred science.
Isn't that interesting that the Chinese government?
Little.
Pretty unthinkable, literally.
No, I mean, I think we all know that there was a great deal of brainwashing in 1950s communist countries, but this book is very well, covers it really well, and it's worth a read. I would go pirate it.
I'd buy it.
All right, cool.
I haven't heard anything about this, but maybe that's just because it might
Well, of
have
course
been...
you wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'd like to take this moment to remind mostly Baph and Boson that we said that when we were done with this Iceberg, that we were going to go back up to the top and do an in-depth search on each subject that we didn't black. So
Yeah.
we can definitely come back to this.
Yeah, that's like a whole book. That's like a whole day worth of reading right there.
What are you guys, Iceberging?
Yeah, man.
Iceberg.
So, next on our list is rhizomes.
I got one picture.
Those are apparently a type of
Ribosome.
subterranean plant stem.
Oh,
I'm
well, if
looking
it's that,
for some type of
Baph, now I'm curious as to how this image is.
wait.
What? How is it related?
Yeah.
No, that's it. That's a rhizome.
Is that about...
Rhizomes are it's just an interesting natural geometry.
I think that'd be pretty high up then.
Yeah, it should
If
be
you're-
this far down.
Let me look
Yeah.
up a rhyme zone.
If you look it up, it has to deal with plant roots and general shapes. All of them very complex.
A good like real easy marker, like if something is like something that a certain worker of some kind would run into in their daily life, you know, like someone studying plants would probably know about this plant, then it's probably pretty high up on an iceberg.
For some reason, it's
Well,
mentioned
we're like-
in Chinese herbology.
We're like,
How would you
I was
spell
gonna
it?
say if it's searchable on Wikipedia, but literally every like conspiracy theory is searchable on Wikipedia.
Yeah,
everyone.
what would it be
well,
called?
I mean, like,
Well, for those of you who are interested in reading, I have a based 3-paragraph X screenshot.
Wait, are you trying to say that this plant is a conspiracy theory?
No,
Oh,
it's a natural oddity.
It's a
Yeah.
natural. It's one of those naturally. It's one of those recurring natural structures that appears everywhere. Sort of. The guy in X goes a lot with purple. But it's
Chemically
It's
speaking,
probably now see the thing is, I don't know where you guys have golden ratio, but if you have golden or silver ratio, you should put that one where those are.
You remember at the beginning?
well,
of
we,
this,
we,
Atticus,
we
you
didn't
said,
place
you
anything.
said, remember at the beginning of this, Atticus, you said you don't care. If
Or
people
maybe
talk
one
as long
above.
as You said you don't care if people talk as long as they have mic etiquette.
I about to say,
You've seen the
Agent,
waffle
you gotta
flower?
get some mic etiquette. For clarity, we don't place anything. This is a pre-made iceberg image. We're just going through it.
Oh, well that's
Ooh, it's a
sounds
very
incredibly
pretty
boring.
flower.
anyway. I gotta go.
I don't
you
think it's a
learn about
flower, but
seal
it's
feminism?
flora.
Well, now you know why I don't like Agent Star.
And now it's immortalized forever.
And now I gotta
Basically-
beep that out so that way he doesn't come after me later. Thanks, Baph.
Oh, come on.
It's not like he checks
So basically,
Number.
rhizomes and branching paths are found everywhere in life, even in the greatest depths of math. So it's just really interesting.
Now,
That's like
do we
5.
do we honestly have to go through time cube and deep web boxes?
Deep web boxes are worth noting.
You should link the down the
Down the
rabbit
rabbit hole? Yeah!
video on TimeCube.
I'll do that
in
right
the
now.
description, and in the description of the video, and yeah, he
What
gives a
about-
better description than what
Well,
we could.
right now, what I'm linking the TimeCube website in voice in case anyone wants to check. Because
Oh,
it's
boy.
still up. It's still up.
Yeah, and I posted about the deep web boxes. Now, Sinaticus, don't be so hasty to ignore this one. Obviously, it's clickbait. It's YouTube clickbait. But has anyone else noticed a trend over the last year or so that like the dark web's become like a mainstream thing that people joke about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I know what you mean. There seems like a genuine.
4chan isn't scary anymore.
I think it has to do with the VPNs.
Well, I think
Anybody else
if,
remember
when you
the
look at these,
dead girl on
what
4chan?
Rube?
Sorry, never mind. Unless you want to talk.
When you look at the YouTube thumbnails for deep web unboxings, when you read about the silly deep web creepypastas, they all seem to discredit it by making it like really silly and villainous, like trying to cover it up that it's really stupid.
Well,
You know what I mean?
I suppose the conspiracy here could be that maybe the people who actually do use the deep web are trying to get rid of its creepy stigma so that way they stop having people snoop around.
Of course, there's also
It's
the
not like
other
North
idea.
Korea, where everybody sees them as a joke, so nobody really takes them seriously.
Yeah. My
I
thought
mean-
is that it might have to do with the new VPN advertising, though. Maybe they're trying to either.
Yeah. Experian will give you a free double deep web search when you get your credit card stolen, because that's possible.
Download Virtual Shield today.
Hmm,
I mean,
It's something boomers fall for.
yeah. Does anybody else remember the time that there was a dead girl and the murderer posted it on 4chan?
Oh yeah.
Like, and also there was a coordinates as well. Like, if anybody
Mm-hmm.
can guess their post number, the
But
coordinates of her body are yours, and that
But
actually happened a few times.
But Rube,
Uh-huh.
we gotta go in order.
I'm sorry.
Wait, didn't we already do that one though?
I think so. Maybe.
It's not even a conspiracy, it's just real.
I know, but if on the mention of 4chan isn't creepy anymore, it kinda is still.
No, it's mainstream now.
Yeah, just like the deep web will be in maybe like 2 years at most.
Nah. No, the deep web will never
Commercialized
be.
children slaves.
The deep web will never be commercialized. There's no need for it to be commercialized.
Though
Well, I
someone
mean-
will probably try to profit.
The only reason why you'd be using Tor, like people like you, is to just basically hide yourself. The majority of people use Tor to just browse the regular internet anyway.
Why?
So the next, or are we?
The next one is the FBI did the Boston Marathon bombing.
I just looked this up, and I have a couple interesting headlines here.
Go on.
So the first one is Boston bomber told FBI he was approached by mystery men in suits. So Tamerlan Sarnev may have called the FBI when they interviewed him about shadowy figures, not about intelligence, saying he might be a terrorist. And it basically goes on to explain, the headline. This is from the Daily Beast. Then there's another one that says FBI knew earlier of Boston bombing suspect. That's from Politico. Yet another says FBI releases 2011 report of interview with Tamerlan Sarnev, who, goes on to say, based on information that he was a follower of radical Islam. I'm just kind of skimming through. I clicked on the first few headlines that I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to give us the full scoop, of course.
Yeah, just kinda TLDR.
Yeah.
I hope I said that right.
So, what do you think, Sinaticus? Is it substantiated? Is it interesting?
Well, I mean,
Well, let's ask ourselves this: what would the FBI's motive even be?
well, and that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, what does the FBI gain from doing this exactly?
That's with most
Job
conspiracy
security?
theories. You're not wrong.
I mean, sure, but I mean, to bomb civilians for job security?
Probably not the first time.
For sports?
People have done worse for jobs.
Yeah. That's with most of the government. Like, 9/11 was an inside job. I know that's a very.
Is there any circumstantial evidence that would suggest this even further? Not just, oh, well, they interview and knew about this guy.
Yeah, mystery men in suits seems very catchy.
That could be literally anything.
Well, I mean, that could have literally been, like, actual mystery men in suits. Like,
but at the same time, there's an equal
What if they're just
chance that it
pedophiles?
wasn't. Well, yeah, thanks, kid.
What if you're just a pedophile?
What if we all are?
well, looks like we can add that to the conspiracy ring down the line, but I'm blacking this.
Everyone is a pedophile.
I'm gonna do the next one.
Phantom kangaroo, eh?
This
Yeah.
actually seems like it's justifiable.
It's my turn, Bagingy.
Go ahead.
Bagingy, I swear to God, Bagingy. Gonna hurt you.
Alright. Don't put me back in the basement.
Phantom kangaroo is essentially when people report kangaroos in an area where they don't exist. So in places like France, Australia, and Japan, kangaroo footprints and kangaroo sightings pop up from time to time. Subsequent investigations never find kangaroos, but people swear to God they've seen them.
Interesting. That actually, I kind of believe that in a way.
So mostly it's backed up by footprints.
I think it's called a zoo.
Zoo release, yeah. That's what I'm mostly thinking about. Where
Well,
it's...
from what I've seen, most people who reported them said that they were acting carnivorously.
Ooh,
Ooh. Golly.
the next one's funny. What the fuck?
What's the
Alright,
funny one?
well, I'll keep it just because we agreed that we wouldn't get rid of cryptids or anything like that.
Yeah, since
Oh yeah,
it's...
base. I forgot about that rule. Now I'm excited.
Mothman!
Well,
Big wayward staffer. More articles.
Go on, Sinaticus.
Listen, I have a draft for Wayward. It's been in production for about 10 months. It's almost done.
It's almost done.
I had a draft for Wayward, but then I canceled it. Maybe I'll bring it back up. Chipotle Mexican grill and food terrorism. Wait, what? Hold up. No, that is what it says.
Chipotle Mexican food and grill.
Terrorism.
Do they just throw
Boson,
burritos at each
Bagingy,
other?
you got anything?
No.
I believe that it's just a theory that the recent, like a couple years ago, salmonella outbreak.
Oh yeah.
In Chipotle. It was
Anime is white genocide.
Isn't that a common
depopulation.
isn't that a common disease they use in terrorist movies? Or some sort of device?
Salmonella, I guess.
Yeah. I think there was a couple times where someone actually tried to do it intentionally, but they were arrested.
Yeah.
That would be the
a
cult
Cry
up
Wolf
in
situation.
Washington.
Yeah, that was it.
Don't mind background noise. Really quick.
So, the next one I did look up.
I found
And
it.
Let me post a
terrifying.
picture.
It's absolutely terrifying.
Holy hell.
Amazing. I love it.
Is it NSFW?
No, it's, I guess, kind of.
Am I even able to show this?
I can blur
I
it out.
know.
Don't worry.
I don't know, actually. Well, here's
I'll
the
blur
thing,
it out.
So
No, it's not a pornographic depiction, so I think it's fine.
So this artist made a cake look like a human torso, and he put his own head, like that's his head, and he's like. But as people cut the cake, he would scream and pain.
Oh.
It's not really an incident. It's fucking terrifying.
But the
Yeah.
thing about
Wait,
that is
It's just art.
and also, it's blackface.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think the artist was black.
He's Swedish. I don't know how many black Swedish people there are, but
Well,
I'm not showing that. I'm gonna keep on my second screen and black that.
Come on, you have to show it at least once for us to know.
Sweden
Yeah,
at it
Yeah,
again.
I'll
Trying
just
not to laugh.
censor it out and make him look happy.
I mean, that's what it looks like, and it's just like I'm looking at this thing from every end, and I don't know what I'm looking at.
Human torso, but not really.
Thank you, Rube.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Yay!
Neg entropy.
This one's really easy. It's the opposite of entropy. It's things coming to order, and I don't know what's so anomalous about it. Does anyone else have any other input, what that might be?
Could you repeat what it was called? Neg entropy?
Neg entropy.
Neg entropy.
Yeah.
So not entropy.
So negative entropy.
Yeah, it's the thing that physics, modern physics, would be impossible. But I think it's plausible that it at least happened at the beginning of existence. I would argue a system in which nothing exists is highly chaotic, and a system in which things exist has infinitely more ordered than something that's that chaotic. So I think if at some point the universe started to exist, that would be an infinite amount of neg entropy happening in a single instant.
Well, here's my take on it. This is gonna sound completely randomly and absolutely insane, but if you look at it, entropy is the breaking down of all systems. So negative entropy would be the coming together of all systems. So when one system breaks down, doesn't it just form another system?
Because
mean,
matter
that's-
cannot be destroyed or created.
Well, this
That
forms
is
into the
actually-
theory that the universe expands and then it contracts, expands and then contracts.
The big crunch?
Yeah.
Well, the big crunch in conjunction with heat death. So the idea is that if everything gets too far apart, they start coming back together, back into one singularity, and then they explode back outward again.
Well, listen, Sinaticus, heat death is a meme.
It's gonna
It's not,
happen.
okay.
I'm sorry. The universe is gonna die from heat.
Sorry, Sinaticus, but the universe isn't a closed system, so.
Look, none of this matters because the apocalypse is gonna come, and then the four horsemen are gonna do their jobs. End of story.
Look how he's deflecting, because he's. I told him the universe isn't a closed system.
What's it? Well, why wouldn't it be? It's a more
Capitalism, socialism.
The entire idea of the heat death is based on the idea that the universe is a closed system, which we don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those things where you can't.
Well, actually, technically,
Oh no, here we go.
there is some evidence to suggest that the universe is not a closed system to begin with.
What's the evidence then?
The evidence
I'm
is
curious,
this.
though.
The evidence is this big, cold void in the middle of space that they recently discovered.
Oh, right, that one. I think we should actually add
And-
that since it doesn't.
Well,
yeah.
Rube,
Uh-huh.
we're going through an image that has already been created. We can't add any.
Oh, I mean,
Not to mention that's not a conspiracy.
oh.
I think
We've
Boo's
talked-
void is in there.
We've talked about doing another series of podcasts where we build our own iceberg.
Oh yeah, no, we're gonna do that. But okay,
Sorry,
fine.
I'm-
So
by the
Rube,
way, I'm
just
new.
yeah, no. So just PM it to me and I'll add it to ours.
Habe.
And one of the popular theories is that the reason why this section of space appears to be both void and cold is that it is plausible that a possible world collided with our world, which means something from outside our dimension poked ours and managed to take some matter with it.
So it's made of black people.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to black that out and ask you to stop
It's
doing
not made
that.
of black people, it's cold. It's made of women.
I can confirm, honestly.
So,
We're horrible
I have the
people.
next one.
Go on.
It's Poverty Point Sun Temples. I came up with this image after doing some very quick research. It's a place in Louisiana where a supposed massive Indian place was on the coast of Louisiana.
Yep.
Supposedly, I'm not entirely sure.
I have an image.
And yeah, they're saying that they found it in Louisiana as well as Egypt, supposedly. Like again, I'm just kind of I'm not very smart, obviously, so I'm just kind
Well,
of
It's
seeing what I
okay.
can get.
Poverty Point was a Mississippi culture civilization area. I think the conspiracy or the oddity derives from the fact, Boson, didn't that society disappear mysteriously?
Yes.
It certainly did.
They were the culture of the mounds. They built rather tall natural structures and were surprisingly complex, but they just up and disappeared one day with no fossil.
The only thing left would be the mounds themselves
And
along the
if,
route.
and if it's true that they could build something as complex as the solar temple, it's even odder that they.
Yeah, that reminds me of the
So it's one
what
of
was
those
it?
unsolved mysteries.
Jamestown?
They got banned for
Jonestown?
hacking.
Tuh.
No, that's not Jamestown. You're referring to what is it, the Roanoke colony where everyone died?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's referring to the Roanoke incident.
What? No, I'm referring to another colony in Massachusetts that straight up disappeared.
Yeah,
Oh,
Roanoke.
the original colony. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I just
Yeah.
I'm trying.
How do I even pronounce this? Silencosis zoneros.
It's Silencio Zoneros.
Here's a picture.
It's the Mapimi Silent Zone. It's a
Oh,
place
I think I've heard of this.
It's an area in Mexico that is supposedly like completely radio silent. Like if you send radio signals to it, the people inside it like it won't receive it. It cancels out radios. Well, a lot of people claim it, and there's a lot of like demonstrations, but there hasn't ever been any scientific inquiry on it, which is weird because you'd think with such a popular urban myth they would have, but there hasn't been any.
Yeah.
Also, apparently, it's called the area isn't actually called the Mapimi Silent Zone. Its official name is the Sea of Thetis because it used to be completely submerged. So big thing.
Interesting.
Isn't Thetis what is it? A water nymph or something who used to be married to Zeus?
It's weird. It's weird that they would name an area in Mexico after like a Greek figure. But
Yeah, it's blackable because it's not provable, and it's UFO who.
Well, I mean, there could be an actual explanation for it as well.
It's just UFO baby boomers making shit up.
But okay.
So, what's Haggard's living mummy?
An author in Britain. I forget the years he was alive. I think early, either late 1800s, early 1900s. This guy H. Rynox. He kept a mummy in his house because eccentric writers do that kind of thing. And he apparently wrote a bunch of letters to his friend, in which he described where he would go to bed, and when he woke up, the mummy would be in a different place, and that there would be, and that happened multiple times, and that there were like trails of debris around his house that were leading to the mummy. So it's just sort of this little odd.
Sort of reminds me of Abigail. Like, not the movie, of course, the actual doll that was haunted.
Yeah, a lot of these conspiracy theories end up having the same type of
but
stuff.
Yeah, well, I would like to say that writer Haggard was a writer too. I would take this one with a bit of a grain of salt. He's creative type, so I wouldn't imagine that it would be the imagination to imagine he was making it up.
Amazon Forest was built.
This one actually has surprising amount of evidence for it. But,
I got
Lord Bagingy, if you have.
The first citation is from the Smithsonian, so.
Yeah,
Do you
I
think,
got one from Science Daily, one from the Atlantic, and one from the Smithsonian. The Science Daily says hundreds of ancient earthworks built in the Amazon. So the summary, they're nice enough to give you a summary at the top of the page. It says the Amazonian rainforests were transformed over 2,000 years ago by ancient people who built hundreds of large mysterious earthworks. Go figure. Then the second source is from the Atlantic. It says the Amazon rainforest was profoundly changed by ancient humans. And then the final, the Smithsonian, the one that you referenced, says that the supposedly pristine, untouched Amazon rainforest was actually shaped by humans. So, there you go.
one thing, very quick. So it's implying that the entirety of the Amazon rainforest was agriculture, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, because before they could store like seeds for farming, they had to just like agriculture the entire area to feed a bunch of people. And then there's a thing where there's in the Amazon there are a few species of trees that are way more numerous than the others, which you wouldn't expect in nature. You'd expect them more even spread, and that's part of the reason why they think that they're just partly constructed.
Yeah, could I say what that reminds me of a little bit?
Oh, sure.
It's
Well, I mean,
okay.
it's a lot of reminding here.
Sorry, I tend to do that.
What's the Essenes? Essence.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Prepare for this to be blacked because it's a Jewish thing.
Yeah, I was wondering, haven't you ever heard of these guys?
I gotta say, I've heard of them, but you guys gotta still explain them.
The Essenes were a Jewish sect during the Second Temple period. You wanna red pill us on that, Sinaticus?
I will let you do the explaining.
There was about 4 major sects or groups.
That could be subdivided into 22.
Okay, there you go.
Go on.
Ayo.
There was the Essenes, the Sadducees, the Pharisees, and I think technically the Zealots, but those could have been any of the others as well. Go on.
Well, I should also note that specifically the Essenes, it says that the Essenes are widely regarded as the authors of the Dead Sea Scrolls. So, which sounds like a Pirates of the Caribbean spinoff.
That's a new one.
So,
I don't know what that implies, because I'm not,
So, okay, so the Dead Sea Scrolls are the oldest examples of the Old Testament we have. They're roughly about 2,000 years old, slightly older than Jesus would have been by the time they were around. And the Essenes were a group of basically closeted Orthodox Jews. They were extremely anti-temple. Barely spoke a word during meals and stuff. And what they did is they hid these scrolls within jars that were later discovered. I think this theory might be referring to things such as the Bronze Scroll and the preservation of the Book of Enoch, though I could be wrong.
Really quick.
All right.
Are they in... What condition are they in?
The Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yeah.
They vary, but for 2,000-year-old scrolls, they're pretty damn well preserved.
Yeah, that's sort of... I heard an argument about that, like, why would they be so well preserved if they were in the saltiest lake or something?
Well, they weren't in the saltiest lake, they were in a cave.
Then that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
nerds as per usual.
The thing about that is, though, the Dead Sea Scrolls were found by a farmer with sheep. However, considering the place where... I don't know. There's practically nothing up there for him to...
in the Dead Sea area of what's modern day Israel.
Yeah, so take that as you will. Also, I found apparently the Essenes are connected to a lot of conspiracy theories, like the one I just posted. Something about the Essene Gospel of Peace, which is produced by the AtlanteanConspiracy.com.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know a conspiracy theory is good when it has a whole website dedicated to it.
Yeah. There's also a book called The Essene Conspiracy by S. Eric Watchell.
Oh.
Israel's finance minister has been murdered in Jerusalem, blah blah blah. This looks more and more like it's a fictional type of reading.
I mean, unless the conspiracy is purporting that the Dead Sea Scrolls are fakes, which they've been thoroughly tested, I actually don't see the conspiracy here.
Yeah.
Of course it was the finance minister.
Neanderthal superiority.
I got a couple articles on this as well.
Well, I think maybe Baph might want to comment on the Neanderthal Caribogos. Do you have any thoughts, Baph?
Doesn't this stem from the fact that they were, just biologically speaking, stronger animals? Like, completely, they were taller, they were more muscular.
Yeah.
They were also not as the Guardian says. Scientists have concluded that Neanderthals were not the primitive dimwits they are commonly portrayed to have been. So, assuming that what they're saying is that, they were as smart as us, and they were also bigger, it does
Yeah.
seem like
I think the old theory goes that they were smarter than us. They just lacked a fundamental skill that we did. They didn't like working with their hands too much. They didn't like building things.
Yeah. They didn't necessarily evolve like we did.
So we got ahead because we were really resourceful and we bred with them.
Makes sense. At
So
least to me.
the Caraboga was BTFO temporarily.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I
Well,
mean,
I mean, just think
if
about
they
it, I
were
mean.
so but if they're so superior, how did they lose?
Well, you can be smarter than somebody and still like just
Yeah.
Not as a group.
BTFO.
As an individual, yes, but not as a group. If a group is strictly superior to others, they just don't lose.
Sinaticus, one of the theories is that they were that we bred with them so much that we eventually diluted their gene.
Yeah.
So
That
basically,
we were.
Karaboga was actually Kira incest.
There was just more of us, and we did like really weird things like building, and we liked walking around. Neanderthals didn't really explore it.
So then,
Maybe
obviously, they weren't superior in the right areas. They certainly couldn't have been smart enough.
Physically, they were superior, but mentally, they weren't.
Yes, as in physique, not fatigue.
So, gym facts, BTFO.
All the Minecraft players took all the women from the chat.
Usturo Burn.
Utsuro Bun. This refers to an unknown object that allegedly washed ashore in eastern Japan.
You have an image?
Yeah, I do actually.
There are a couple images here. Let me post them.
All right, yeah. I'll read what's here. Boon means boat, and utsuru means empty or hollow. The tale goes as an attractive young woman who is 18 to 20 years old arrived on the local beach aboard this hollow ship on February 22nd, 1803. Fishermen brought her inland to investigate further, but the woman was unable to communicate in Japanese.
These are really low quality images, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's okay.
She was very different than anyone there. The fishermen then returned her and her vessel to the sea, where it drifted away. It also goes on to say that historians, ethnologists, and physicists have evaluated the legend of the hollow boat as part of a long-standing tradition with Japanese folklore. Alternatively, certain ufologists have claimed that the story represents evidence for a close encounter for the third kind. It's interesting, but it also might just be an urban legend, but maybe not. What's you guys' thoughts on this?
Be some autistic Polynesian that washed up one.
Well, I mean, at least in my opinion, I would say that if it was an urban legend, wouldn't you think it would have more mystical qualities to it?
No, there are plenty of urban legends with non-mystical qualities to it. It would strike me that this is just another UFO thing, and I can't stand this enough.
She does kind of draw a point. She does kind of draw a point in the way that it does seem pretty cut and dry. In the way that, like, there's no gods. They're not chalking it up to a god. They're not chalking it up to a mystical creature.
Not all urban legends require a god, though.
I know.
Yeah, but this seems...
I mean, every culture around the world has dragons as a folklore, but none of them include gods.
Well, there are dragon gods, I think.
There are a couple.
But,
Yay!
I don't know. There's something about this that seems more like there's no big mystical parts of it. It's just there's this weird boat with this weird lady. Maybe this actually did happen, but it wasn't an alien encounter. Maybe it was just some autistic Polynesian with a weird boat. But again, it's like it does seem pretty cut and dry for a folklore story.
So,
I disagree. Moving on.
Okay.
The
guess.
Yeah.
I disagree. Your argument is invalid. Moving
Well,
on.
I didn't say that you were invalid.
No,
Who said
no, I
that?
know. It's just I'm just being. I'm not.
The Grey Goblin of King Charles the Seventh. Nope, that's the
that his
12th.
penis?
Well, I'm still looking.
Is that what he calls his penis?
I mean, honestly, I'm thinking that might be plausible because I searched long and hard for this one because I really wanted to know what it was, but it does not appear to be found. I can't find anything.
Long and hard, was that a pun?
I was gonna say. And what was it?
I gotta skedaddle. It was great being on this little adventure with you guys. Maybe I'll be back later. Maybe not. Have a good night, y'all.
You
Have
too.
fun with this.
This adventure was a little dope.
So yeah, I can't find anything either. The only thing that comes up is some guy from Sweden.
Wait, I already blacked it. Luna Park trained fire demon. Oh fuck, we already talked about this.
Well, I'm gonna talk about it again because I love it.
I love it too. This is great. This is just fucking great.
I haven't heard of it.
Oh, okay. So Luna Park is, I believe, an amusement park in New York State. In the 70s, there was a fire which killed a few children on one of its roller coasters. One of the mothers of the children that died in the fire was looking through her old family photographs and found a photograph which, if you look in voice, is of her child with a strange man wearing like a demon costume. She contacted a few people who were there. None of them knew who he was. He wasn't employed by the park. Apparently, he was
a guy.
Yeah.
Huh.
So.
Interesting.
She didn't even remember taking the picture with him.
But that could just be, you know.
Yeah.
But who was
in
phone?
any case, who was phone? In this case, who was train park?
Teehee. And that is rather interesting. It doesn't seem like it's just mystical, like, oh, and he lifted the kids away or something.
Yeah,
it seems genuine.
The connection here is that he's dressed in a way that relates to ancient entity of worship called Molech, who is the patron of child sacrifice, usually by fire. So it's quite the interesting little tidbit. It's very odd.
Yeah.
Big think on that.
It's just, it's so perfect.
I'm gonna do the next.
Speaking of the next one, Urkhammer, Iowa.
Urkhammer, Iowa, and the other one, however, they both have the same premise. Both of them were small towns in the middle of their nation, one in the Midwest and the other in central Brazil. Both towns lost all of their population with no discernible reason why. Both go unsolved. However, the Urkhammer one is not substantiated by any news sources, while the Brazilian one is. The Brazilian one in particular, there was no evidence of kidnapping, no evidence of scuffle, no evidence of struggle. 600 people just went away.
Mass disappearance? Like, no bodies found, no nothing?
Nothing?
Why does he have sunglasses? Sorry, I'm looking at his voice.
Yeah. And the thing with Urkhammer is you have to think some of these things on the Iceberg are a bit cryptic. And when you Google Urkhammer, the third result is an article for the disappearance of this lady named Jody Huisentrutz.
I feel like I've heard that before.
Link the Wikipedia. I don't know how to pronounce that last name. She was
Huisentrutz.
Television news anchor that went missing in Iowa in like the 60s.
90s.
90s. Oh, she was born in the 60s. Whatever.
She was born fully grown.
Yeah.
So
and,
it was like
right before her disappearance, she was playing at a golf tournament. So you might say that this is a bit of a golf.
It's a real golf story? Is that what you're trying to say?
It's a golf route.
Is this the Bradbury building?
What?
I'm reading about that. We should.
They're on the
Hold
next
on.
one already, Boson.
I kind of lost track, and it just seems as though we're off.
No. This was the third Google result when we searched Urkhammer Isle.
Really?
And I'm thinking that what might have happened is that someone put Urkhammer Iowa on the Iceberg as a sort of little deep to lead people to this story. That's a bit of a crackpot theory, but I'm wondering if maybe because this story is really interesting. This disappearance, and I don't know. It doesn't have anything to do with Urkhammer Iowa. I don't know why it's in the search.
Maybe the idea is that she went to Hammer, Iowa.
It could be. Her disappearance has never been solved. So.
Huh.
It's sort of like a, what's the word? Not double entendre. Whatever the word is. Well, Sinaticus, are we gonna keep it or not?
Sorry, I was yawning. Sure, we'll keep it.
Why not?
Missing towns? I'm a sucker for missing towns.
Well, good, because the next one is another missing.
Which one?
Horror.
I already included that in part of the Iowa thing. Both were about missing towns, Boson, and both are unsolved.
Well, you two seem to be itching to go for Bradbury. Why don't you go for that?
You have anything on the Bradbury building?
It's really short, but it's really sweet. The Bradbury building is really famous. It's been in a bunch of movies like Citizen Kane, Blade Runner. If you look at the design, it's pretty neat. The backstory, however, is interesting. It was designed by a total novice. Had no idea what he was doing. He had the project dropped on him one day, and his brother, who he bunked with, claimed that the dude had like a nightmare. And the architect, allegedly, he said that a dead family member came to him in a dream and gave him the plan for this building. Now, the way in which this building is constructed is very unique and very unusual, and architects of the day do not understand how someone so inexperienced could design a building so
When was this built again?
This was built in 1895.
I mean,
Some
it's
of the
not that far
styling.
off. If you bring somebody into Minecraft and just have them build a house, they might make something like that.
Yeah, but some of the stylings on this are much further than this time.
Now here's another shot of the staircase. These
If it's further
staircases
than
are all
this
over the
time,
place.
then maybe people copied them.
Yeah, that's very true.
So TLDR, dude was a total noob, no experience whatsoever. Got the job dropped on him, and he had like a nightmare, and it came to him.
Weird.
Maybe it was the anxiety concerning the job.
Well, he literally said himself that his dead relative gave him the idea.
I mean, you could have anything in your nightmare. It doesn't make it true.
And even if you ignore that part, this building is too well done for a novel to do in one go. This is like an 11-year-old Minecrafter making like a 10,000 block tall house as soon as he boots the game up.
I mean, he didn't build it. He just designed it. And
Yeah, but designing it, he had this wacky, weird idea, and it worked. It worked perfectly. There was no complications.
I guess.
I'm sure
It's not really supernatural. I mean, I'm gonna ignore the supernatural claim and just say that it's weird because he had no idea what he was doing, and it became an icon.
Or even a broken clock is right twice a day.
That's not how architecture works, Karbon.
Yeah, it is.
If you draw one line out of whack, the whole thing's ruined. That's how difficult architecture.
Yeah, trust.
No.
Stick Indians. It's in
Oh,
quotations.
they're just these little creatures in Indian folklore. The fact that it's in quotations, I'm not sure is going on with that. I might check Fort Plebs about it, but basically the Stick Indians are like these little malicious elf creatures in Indian folklore. There's not really much else to it.
Says they're dangerous forest spirits. Hairy, Bigfoot-like. Forest dwarves is another one used.
Oh, is this a Bigfoot thing?
Maybe it's a mixture. Paralyzed, hypnotized, cause insanity in hapless humans. While others, they just lead them astray and make eerie sounds with whistling and laughter. Okay. Yeah, just like that. In some stories, they may eat people, kidnap children, or molest women. Sounds like they're just a bunch of weird, short midgets in the forest. With big, hairy feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
They also take
Hobbits?
revenge. Yep, pretty much.
They also take revenge.
On
What? On
They-
I would say on who?
Against people who injure or disrespect them, no matter how unintentionally.
Oh my almost God, that's horrible. I mean, it makes sense, I guess, why it could be in a folklore setting, but still.
Also, it's a euphemism in an English language, saying the actual Salish names of these beings in public is considered to be provoking their attacks in some tribes.
So the Tumblr.
What are you talking about, Rube? Okay, I'm gonna keep this. Cuban yellow balloons. We've already went over this, and I'm blacking it.
Really? It's interesting.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
It
Well,
can
wait.
be
What do you
stupid and
think it is?
It's like when like a bunch of yellow balloons appeared on the coast of
No, it wasn't balloons. Those were balloons in crates, Soviet crates, on their way to Cuba that were empty. Hundreds of these crates were found. They were all empty and had yellow balloons in them, and they were always, the packing weight was always higher than what was actually in it.
Really?
And they never really explained this.
That's actually kind of.
And, oh, by the way, the boxes were written in English.
Yeah, which.
That's kinda strange.
Soviet crates.
So it might be a prank, but it's pretty retarded prank.
Yeah.
So wait, you said that it was... What did you say about the weight again?
It was.
The boxes listed a weight, usually 50 kilos, sometimes 100 kilos, but they would always be grossly underweight, like they were emptied out. But then you go to open it and it's just a box full of balloons.
Blown up balloons?
Yes, inflated.
That is really weird. But I don't think it would be.
And a lot of them had barnacles on them, which means that they were there for at least a few months.
Yeah. All in all, strange.
The next one has to do with your country, Rube.
It's me.
Mao Zedong was a Yale graduate.
Go on.
That's the current conspiracy. Some guy apparently is looking for credible sources on Reddit. Let's
When you
see.
make your conspiracy without claims, without evidence, and you go to Reddit for the evidence.
Reddit is pretty good at digging up old things. Like, that's not a compliment, by the way. Reddit is just. Yeah, they said, on, like, r/creepy r/with WTF, and they. About a guy using sticky notes, like finding sticky notes all over his house. And one guy pointing out that it was carbon monoxide poisoning that makes you forget and get dizzy, lose your memory, etc. and actually was correct. I'm not crediting Reddit for that, but I'm just saying, they come up with a lot of weird things. So
Alright.
don't blame them for going to Reddit for that.
Now, the citations that people are giving him, one is the Yale China Association, which is an independent non-profit organization, apparently. established in 1913. Put it up there.
When was
And
Yale?
another one was this site. Can't find else much more on that.
It's okay.
It's about as much as I can find. Ah, here we go. Early years of the Yale-China Association. Between 1919 and 1920, future chairman Mao Zedong had several encounters with the school. He edited its student magazine, refocusing it on thought reorientation, and operated a bookshop out of medical college. Now, there are actual sources for this. One is by Jonathan Spence, 2006, Mao Zedong, A Life, New York Penguin. Another is Yale Group Spurs Mao's Emergence, Yale Daily News. Hold on.
I feel like I've heard this before.
And here is the archived copy of that, which is a article.
I'll figure it out.
So, there's no actual graduate papers, but there's definitely a connection.
I guess we'll keep it.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
Interesting.
What about the Cotton Hollow Giant?
This one's pretty quick. It's basically a it's a Bigfoot story of sorts. In 1898, a newspaper in Connecticut published a story that a trio of men had sighted a very, very tall humanoid in the trees. Despite sighting footprints, investigators never found any. But interestingly enough, a couple towns over, which had an Indian reservation, the Indians have like this folklore of a giant that wanders the hills, and they've had it for hundreds of years. So it could have been just a silly little gag at the Indians' expense, but the newspaper treated it quite seriously, and the local sheriff's office conducted an investigation. Didn't find anything, of course.
Well, we don't block cryptids, so moving on. Brandon Lee murdered by Chinese mafia. Now,
golly goodness.
if I'm not mistaken, Brandon Lee is Bruce Lee's son?
I believe so.
The one who died while during the filming of the movie.
Yeah, that one.
Ah, yes, that one where
yeah, his a prop gun was a real gun was mistaken for a prop gun, and he got actually shot by it. I think, well, I don't think it was actual filming. It could have been. Like, they were filming a scene, and he got shot by a real gun that they thought was a prop gun. But I don't really see how it could have been.
Well, back then, if I'm not mistaken, like, martial arts was pretty exclusive to the East. And many people didn't like Bruce Lee because he was teaching it to non-Asians.
Yeah, well, yeah, the theory goes that the Chinese mafia that killed Bruce Lee also killed Brandon by staging his death.
They still try to keep it like secret.
Yeah, I can see that.
They don't like
happening.
MMA. Like there was this one guy who was he was doing MMA and he beat up some masters in Tai Chi and what was the other one? I can't remember. Kung Fu. Yeah, Kung Fu and Tai Chi master. This MMA guy just fucking beat him up, and he had his social credit destroyed. He had all his social media accounts closed by the government as well. Because they said they were.
So I hate to Oof. I hate to put this on hold, but I can't actually. Well, I don't need to go, but I can't record due to external factors. So we're gonna have to leave this at an hour, which is pretty solid anyway.
Yeah.
Wait, we're stopping?
Well, we're stopping the official recording. If you want to keep talking about conspiracy theories, go back and talk about other stuff, we can still do that.
Aw.
I have to. I have to. External factors are causing me to do so. So I'm sorry.
Well, what do you mean by external?
I